Welcome to the Accelerate Campfire. I'm Lyndon Bowen, and today I'm joined by an amazing entrepreneur. I truly hope you enjoy hearing their experiences and life path. Listen in. We're going to get the event formally started today with our guest, Chris Gu. As we have kind of like foreshadowed a bit talking about social media, Chris's background is actually in that space. His business, Stellar AR, creates custom Instagram augmented reality experiences and boasts a catalog of personal and client filters that have exceeded over 10 billion impressions. He also currently works as a product manager at Microsoft, as a part time Major League hacking coach, and even does brand deals as a micro influencer. Please, guys, without further ado, give a warm welcome, drop your emojis and gifts into the chat. Welcome Chris Gu to the campfire here today. Chris, welcome.
Wow, thank you for the warm welcome.
I'm reading the bio. I'm like, Jesus, Chris, you're so cool. Like 10 billion impressions. Like, what does that feel like? I'm just curious.
It's kind of worn off a little bit, but when I first saw the first billion, I was like, damn, that's like 1/8 of the entire world's population.
Yeah.
Now at 10 billion, I just think basically everyone I meet has probably seen a filter I've made, which is an insane thought to
Right.
to even comprehend. Which goes to show that, like, I don't know, social media is is so powerful.
Yeah. It's kind of terrifying, right? Actually, some people want to know, like, could you name one of your filters? Like maybe one of your most popular or a second popular. I'm gonna actually drop some links. Leslie's gonna drop some links to your website as well in the chat.
Yeah, my most famous is Guess the Gibberish. That was back during the height of the pandemic. And basically, I created it and didn't think much of it because I was creating other filters at the time that didn't really pop off. Um, and then the next day, I saw my impressions. It was like 2 million. And I was like, damn, that's so good. Like, I've never hit that in one day. And then the following day, it hit 400 million impressions. And I was
Jesus.
like, holy cow, how did that even happen?
What
And
happened? Yeah.
someone posted their video on TikTok and it blew up on TikTok, not on Instagram, which is insane. And then that's how it really started. So,
So
yeah.
it's
And then
cross-platform too.
one recently, I guess, yeah, one recently is I created a like game filter called Mandela Effect, which essentially like a user gets two options of like a logo or whatever, and they have to decide which one is the real one because we as a collective like to come up with things that are not real, which is why there's a thing called Mandela Effect. So yeah.
Yeah, so you said we as a collective. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, I
Are you
meant
working
like
like in
people in
collaboration with other? Oh, okay. As I was like, oh, so is there more people working with you, or is it just you by yourself? I
no,
was
it's
curious
just
for a second.
me. But like people in general, just like come up with a common consensus around what is real or not, which is why a Mandela effect is a thing, which I thought was pretty interesting. And so I turned that into a filter and it really popped off. I think the day I released it, Wiz Khalifa used it, which is pretty cool. But yeah.
And what does the creation process look like? It's interesting. You're kind of molding together like the technical side, right? You're building the AR yourself, and you're molding together the social media slash the artistic side of it. Like, what does your process look like to create a filter or augmented reality experience? I'd say.
Yeah, so it usually starts out with an idea. And usually that idea has some sort of content. And so I would like do some research and create a spreadsheet of all the different content that goes into the filter. And then once that's like said and done, I open up my Figma, which is like the best design tool ever, by the way. And
We
I
have some
start
Figma users in here, by the
designing.
way.
I love Figma. I want them to hire me. I've applied to like 10 of their PM positions, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Um, but oh yeah, designing the different PNGs that I will import into the filter in Figma, and then design the actual filter and like applications like Spark AR Studio from Facebook, or I guess Meta now. So yeah, that's usually the process. It can take from like a day to like a couple weeks, but
Mm.
it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And I would like to say for the audience, guys, we're dropping the first poll in there for Chris. So please go ahead and vote on that and choose the question that you'd like me to ask him. Chris, one follow up question while they're voting on that. How did you get into like making like augmented reality experiences? Like, what did that path look like for you?
So you were actually there. I
No way.
was literally, I was in Israel for this tech entrepreneurship program, and we were sitting in a cybersecurity class. And like such a good student, I was not paying attention. And one of my friends sitting next to me, her name is Rain. She discovered that you could create your own filters on Instagram. And that was like in the very early days. I believe they just finished their beta. And so I was like, damn, that's so cool. Let's make one together. And we did. And that's how it really started. And I think the reason why I continued down the path is because I made a very silly one called "Which Dog Breed Are You?" And that went semi viral. And I was like, that feels really good. I feel so popular. I'm going to create more. So yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I find it so funny when you tell that story. I always think like, Jesus, I should have been like creating AR filters instead of like paying attention in class. um, so the audience is curious to know how where you grew up influenced like you and like who you are today as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So honestly, I feel like I had a very I had a very generic upbringing.
Hmm.
I just went to high school, went to college. Um, I guess one thing that really stands out to me was I grew up in a not very diverse childhood,
Mm,
um, as well as going through education. It just wasn't very diverse. But now, as an entrepreneur, I think that is like one of the most important things to consider, because everyone has different experiences. And if you don't account for that in the products or services or the startup that you're creating, then you're missing out entire segments of people that could utilize what you're creating. And so making sure that diversity is always kept in mind. Um, is very important. And just stepping on a soapbox here, I also think that some companies do diversity in the wrong way. I think you shouldn't really hire solely for diversity purposes, like solely for the numbers. You should hire with merit and responsibilities and roles in mind, um, and just continue to reach out outside of who you normally contact. I remember someone saying to me when I was looking at companies to work at, um, that people hire who they are like. And so always being mindful of that sort of unconscious bias of hiring people that are like you, and avoiding that in your hiring process, I think is super important in regards to DEI. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, you're a product guy. Like you live, breathe, and make experiences for people. Like, how do you like embody that DEI perspective in the products that you build?
For me specifically, I guess I implement it in the very early stages. When I do create a product, in my case, it's like internal tools. I make sure to be able to interview a wide variety of target users with different backgrounds and needs, and always consider like things like accessibility in creating a product as well, which Microsoft is really good at. They have tools that allow us to make it very easy for people who have colorblind or are colorblind or cannot see or are deaf, and always considering that in our products that we build.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think you bring a really interesting perspective as an entrepreneur who's like truly living fully in the digital space and creating digital first products. What does the kind of like monetization pathway look like for you as an entrepreneur when you're building things fully in the digital realm?
Yeah, so in the context of my effects that I build, unfortunately, platforms that I build them on don't have any monetization features. So all of the impressions that I get, all of the increased traffic that they get, not really monetizable. The current only way to do it is to create filters for other people, other clients, other influencers and businesses. And so that's why I sort of started my studio, is because I got a lot of requests and they were giving decent money. So I was like, I'm not going to turn that down. And I just like created a small brand for myself, and made connections with like lots of music management companies, um, to create effects for them.
Yeah, yeah. And while guys, the next poll has dropped in the chat, so please feel free to go and vote on that. What's one biggest piece of advice you would give to like digital creators in this space, or even entrepreneurs who are more in the physical product and they want to maybe create some digital first products? Like, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give to those entrepreneurs?
Really understand the nuances of each social media platform. I know a lot of times digital marketers will just copy paste content across all platforms, but each platform is slightly different, has different audiences, and has prioritizes different types of content. And so I think it's really important to really immerse yourself in each platform and understand how the users are using it so you can optimize your content to be the most well received. Um, and I experienced this a little bit when I did a social media internship for a nonprofit called Out in Tech. I initially just posted the same content everywhere, but it wasn't really working. And once I began to like take time out of my day to like really go through each platform and like just scroll as a user and see what content I interact with the most, that gave me so much more insight as to how I should format that content that I'm pushing out. Um, so yeah, hopefully that made sense.
I think Joe brought a really good point here, which is to focus on why you're using the platform over just kind of like spreading yourself too thin. Is that something that you would kind of agree upon in terms of a point?
Yeah, definitely. Not all platforms are suitable for your content. Um, and in that case, don't bother like putting a lot of effort into them and focus on the one that gives you the most returns. Um, so yeah, totally
Um,
agree.
yeah. So, one of the questions here, which is like, why did you think your big idea would work, right? You set out to create these AR experiences for people after you had the first success. Like, why did you keep going at building these experiences for people online?
I think it sort of gave me purpose. This was during the height of the pandemic, and I know that um, a lot of people were staying at home. They were bored, they were tired, they just wanted some lighthearted fun, and creating effects that allowed people to share their laughs, their creativity, their videos online. Um, Really pushed me to make more. So like following the guest gibberish, I made one that was about emojis, and I did a game called Song Association that people really enjoyed using. And seeing people being creative and so happy using the filter just kept me going, even though there was no financial return. It just I felt like I had a purpose in that time period. Less so now. I haven't really created many effects for my personal account anymore.
Mhm.
Primarily though because I don't have time. I get a lot of client requests, and so
Look
hopefully
who
that
last
answers your
coming in,
question.
right? It's just like
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I have an interesting follow up question to that, which is, there's always a debate, right? Which is like, do you build the business model first, or do you build the kind of product and the user base first? Where would you kind of fall on that debate?
Product and user base first. I wouldn't be sought out as much if I didn't know what users want in filters. And so constantly pushing out effects to learn about what people like, what they like to use, and what they like to see has made me a very desirable creator. And in terms of like a business, I didn't really focus on monetization at the beginning. I essentially reached out to a bunch of clients and offered my services for free, just so I can experience freelancing and how to communicate with those clients and how to create a product package that can eventually sell in the future. And this not only gave me that kind of experience, but it also gave me a base set of clients so that when I do reach out to others, I am somewhat reputable.
You have a track record, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, track record.
What's been like your favorite filter that you've made for a client?
My favorite has got to be the one for a music artist called Netta. She is the winner of a music competition called Eurovision
Oh,
in Europe.
Eurovision! Wow, that's crazy.
And she released a song called Dumb. And so I created a filter that throws 3D letters of the word DUM at the person's face. Um, and it was just pretty fun. It was pretty fun. And I love how they gave me like the creative freedom to do that. Um, and it was great to create 3D models and generate animations. Um, and that was like my first time using sort of like Blender to do all of that.
And some people in the collective are curious, like, is there any way they could search the filter called "dumb" if they wanted to find it? I think a lot of people are interested in it.
Yeah, it's actually without the B, it's DUM.
Oh,
But
DUM.
yeah,
Okay.
but it's a pretty fun filter. Um, and I'm glad the team that reached out to me about it loved it as well.
And so the next question here is what would you kind of like call your biggest mistake? What's been your biggest mistake, along in your path so far?
I would say in terms of augmented reality, I kind of siloed myself to a specific platform early on. And I came with pros and cons. Pros, I became an expert on that one specific platform. But the con is there are other platforms out there with even more reach that I was not able to tap into. Um, and there are worries in the future that this specific platform might not be the platform. And if I've invested everything into that one, then I'm kind of at a loss. And so I should have, in my specific case, created and like started investing time into Snapchat because they also have a huge AR platform as well. Lots of clients want um, effects on that platform. Um, and they have a huge Gen Z user base that is continuing to use that platform. And I've sort of implemented my advice that I just said. I just started in the TikTok beta program for their AR creator platform. And I honestly think that FX on TikTok is going to be the future. And so investing early on. And Joe asked a question, do you see Unreal and any other engines regarding 3D NFTs and other items? I do. So I think the current state of things is that each platform is coming out with their own application to create products solely for their platform. However, that's so bad for creators because you have to learn 3, 4, 5 separate different applications. And so if a company comes out or someone creates an open source project um, on like Unity or Unreal or other engines that can be used cross-platform, I think that will essentially take over the market. However, these platforms really have the upper hand here because they're giving access to creators to their audience. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and if you had to choose between Snapchat and TikTok, like what would you make a decision like as a business owner if you were trying to reach a younger demographic?
I'm kind of biased because I deleted Snapchat and I'm a
Okay,
huge TikTok user, but
okay,
also just based on uh, like volume and users and like popularity, TikTok is where it's at.
hmm,
And a lot of I guess the platforms are sort of different. Snapchat is more peer to peer
yeah,
versus TikTok, which is like anyone can see. And so I would probably choose TikTok.
interesting. Creating these digital products in this space, what does the legal terrain look like for creators who are looking to like build these products that may or may not like reference popular brands or popular studio networks? How do you kind of like tread that area?
Usually, when I sign deals with clients, everything that I make, um, they own. And that's usually how it goes with most freelancing jobs. I think once you become large enough, you can start to barter and take back some ownership. But in the current state of things, I am essentially giving them a digital product for them to use. And so if I'm using their brand assets and they're paying me to create this digital product, I totally see why they would want everything. Like I would want everything if I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's also interesting because a lot of creators for non-clients for the personal effects use brands without their permission. However, we haven't really seen any of them taken down primarily because it's free advertisement.
Yeah.
Um, and if it goes viral, then that's amazing. They had to pay nothing. And so they usually don't ever take it down regardless.